I'm your host, Marsha Florence, for Just Ask Podcast Live. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning in. And it's been a minute since you see me probably, but we never miss a beat. So that means that we're out collecting some very resourceful information for you when you don't see me directly. So today, ladies and gentlemen, I want to bring back a returning guest to get some information out to you about possible scams. Can you believe that? A lot of people are confused about things that happen when they get phone calls and say, your insurance is going to lapse, or better yet, you have to send some money in to continue your policy, this and that. And so today we brought one of our experts back, Dan H Tripp. And Dan's going to fill us in on some information. So Dan H Tripp from Eagle Financial Solutions and Point Professional. So without further ado, let's talk to Dan. Hey, Dan Tripp.
Good afternoon, Marsha.
Glad to see you.
Yeah, good to be back.
Thank you. Now, Dan, I was just preparing our viewers to know that today's show is all about possible scams, redetermination scams. So I needed you to come in and join us today to, educate the viewers, because a lot of people are getting taken advantage of just mainly by a phone call, not by mail, not necessarily in person, but a phone call that's something that they are familiar with is being taken away from them, and they're panicking.
They are. These scammers are very good at what they do. And they can make it seem as if everything is on the up and up when nothing is at all.
And it's really scary, because it's like if you say a word or two that we're familiar with or comfortable with, we say, what? My insurance, what? My policy? And then people just start to say, well, what do I need to do? And then, the whole thing starts to become unraveled.
Yes, it does. One of the favorite questions that people ask when they're scamming you is, can you hear me? And if you say yes to that, that allows them then to move forward in the call. It's a classic way of getting tricked into giving them information.
Oh yeah. So let's start off with the idea of so supposedly that May 11 marked the end of the COVID-19 emergency and has caused a new Medicaid redetermination process. So how is this affecting people in general?
Well, there's a lot of confusion around that, because at the end of the determination, the government said, well, we're going to look at your Medicaid eligibility for this program again. And so a lot of folks thought that it was going to end right away. And that's really not the case. It's going to be a process that takes some time, and it's actually not going to end until September of 2024. So in the meantime, those who are on the extended Medicaid, and it's based on typically on a little bit different income level in need, those people should be fine until September of 2024. The best advice that I could give somebody who's concerned is to call the insurance company that they're with to make sure that that side of their determination is being upheld, because Medicare Advantage is a different piece of Medicaid. If they're on Medicaid and Medicare, there are a lot of different rules that they look into, and inflated income is one. I say inflated, it's just beyond the typical cutting off point for Medicaid eligibility. During the pandemic, they allowed an extra income level, and they paid for a lot more things. And basically, it affected millions of people across the country. And the government doesn't have the ability to reach out to each and every one of those folks. So again, you may not get a letter from the state,
Right.
You may not get a letter from your insurance company. The best thing to do is, if you're concerned at all, is pick up the phone, give them a call.
Well, you know what? Ideally, since you said 2024, and here we are 2023, people will start to feel as though I'm not going to be concerned with this till early next year. But if that's the case, should it be to a person's advantage to check into it now and say,
Yeah,
or
because
mark the
that
calendar?
the 2024 date is when it'll end. All the redeterminations will be in place.
Right.
You or I might be affected by it prior to that.
Right.
So it's always best to have the right amount of knowledge and not guess. Don't guess.
You got that right. And a lot of people don't see that when the announcement of the emergency surge of COVID-19 has ended, a lot of the services have gone back to what they consider as normal when they were inflated in the first place. I mean, food stamps, water bills, electric bill, anything that we had before, it was kind of relaxed for a moment or it was increased. And now it's going back to the normal costs, the monetary, the mandate on the rent. So what was it?
Yeah,
Something.
the eviction.
Yep.
Eviction ending.
Moratorium. That's what I'm trying to say.
Moratorium. There we
Yep.
go. That is ended.
Yep.
And so it's now, you got to start paying the rent again.
Right. And then there's agencies that are providing resources for those who are unable to pay their rent, but they don't know, people normally don't know how to search for them or, where to look. And you got to start somewhere, whether it's your DHS office or if it's, landlord and tenants' rights. You got to start doing something because everything that we have that had been affected by COVID is now going to take a step back into what they consider normal.
Yeah, I would say if you're in the city of Detroit, go to the website and there'll be links to water bills and your rent payments, those kinds of things, just so you get re-educated, because it's been since 2020. So it's been 3 years of people having not worrying about these kinds of things.
Well, it affected everyone around the world, period. And then, when we talk about our own state, it affected our state greatly too. Whether it's Wayne, Oakland, or Macomb County, it's deeply rooted issues that had to be addressed, or we wouldn't have these open discussions about what to do now that the moratoriums are lifted. What do we do now that our insurances are being questioned? It's going to go over and over, but I'm hoping that people will tune in to Just Ask and, pay attention to what we have and what we're saying, because these are helpful tools. And that's like today we're talking about scams. So I wanted to ask you a question. A lot of times the so-called agents call and they say something to a person on the phone, like you said. They say, "Can you hear me?" And you say yes. And that word yes, somebody said that when you say yes, it's almost like you're confirming something that they can use your voice later to utilize.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep, so they would then get into your bank account perhaps or something else and use that voice of yours to allow the bank to do something they would never, ever do.
Right.
And because the banks, the financial houses always want you to be there too. So if somebody's calling on your behalf, they won't do anything without you there. So if they say, well, is Joe Dokes there with you? They just hit that button that says yes, and then they go forward.
Right. And a lot of people don't realize too that the IRS doesn't make phone calls. The state of Michigan doesn't make phone calls. There's a lot of agencies that do not make phone calls. And if they do, that must have been something that they had spoken to you before, and then they have to do a follow-up call. But as a retired government agent, we don't make phone calls. Okay, it's like you have to have something, that a person say, "Well, I'll call you back." An agent will say, "I'll call you back." But we initially do not make phone calls outgoing to provide, resource or give out information about people's personal information.
It's like even like Amazon accounts. Amazon doesn't make phone calls.
Correct.
They send emails. Or like the IRS and snail mail. You'll never even get an email from the IRS. But people react in the moment. Oh my God, the IRS called me. Oh my God, my bank is calling me. And that's where they get all tied up and end up writing checks or buying gift cards.
Yeah, oh yeah, that gift card.
And
That one where you go, they say, well, you go to the store, get a gift card, and then give us the number, and then we can secure that amount of money for you. But give it. I'm like, why am I going to the store to get a gift card? That is, green dot, whatever. Okay, so let me ask you this. So, how can I find out if a person, he or she is is licensed in Michigan, is a real agent in Michigan?
well, if you're on the phone with them, it's kind of tough. So you got to almost go with your gut. I mean, the gut is right, a good feeling thing. I mean, if it just seems wrong, suggest that you get their name and then tell them, hey, I've got to go do something. Let me call you back. And then call the Department of Insurance and Financial Services or go online and check them out and make sure they're who they say they are.
Okay.
You can ask certain questions. You can ask what their national producer number is. Every one of us has a dedicated 6-digit number that we have, and it's only ours.
Okay.
And if they don't know that, there's something wrong there, because that's how we get appointed with companies, is to use that number. You can ask how long the person's been an agent. Say, well, listen, you're not my agent, so how long you been doing this?
Right. You're not my agent, so okay.
And if you're face to face with them, you can look them in the eye. You can check their body language. One thing might be to even see if they have a business card with their agency name on it. Now, that's usually easy to dummy up, but if they're on the up and up, they're whipping that card out right away for you.
Right.
And if you want to know if they're licensed in Michigan, the easiest thing to do is to visit the Department of Financial Services. And that can be found at www.michigan.gov/DIF as in Frank, S as in Sam. And there's a box there you can click called License Search.
Okay.
You click on that, you scroll down to where they ask for the guy's name or girl's name. And you can plug that in and the state, and it will come up with everything you want to know about that person.
Wow.
And if there's nothing there, guess what? He's not an agent.
Okay. I know. We do have a sheet of the Department of Insurance and Financial Services. So that number that you gave out, the consumer hotline number is on there. So ladies and gentlemen, if you're watching the show now and you see this consumer hotline number, because you're saying, well, wait a minute, how am I going to take time out and call? There's the number, 877-999-6442. And there is the website. Okay, so you can actually go on the website as well. Okay, michigan.gov/DIFS. And it's got, and Dan, it's got on there DIFS complaints. That's a good one.
Well, that's if you have a complaint, like if your agent has done something you feel is unethical or illegal, or if you just think the person's illegal, shouldn't be doing this stuff, that's where you would go to file a formal complaint. And DIFS every month rolls out determinations that they've made on people that they've had complaints on.
Now, I'm going to tell you something. I actually had to use the Department of Insurance. I mean, I had an issue with my homeowner's insurance that they were just going to cancel me out and, send me down the river. And I'm like, that's not going to happen. So I had a wonderful relationship with my agent representative who walked me through the process and got my insurance for my homeowner's insurance reinstated. So I would definitely take the time out as an individual to contact their department and learn more about what the various services they provide and what they cover. What type of insurance concerns that they cover. They were good. Those guys are good. So hats off to them.
And their website's quite intense. I mean, you can
Oh,
get
yeah.
an awful lot of knowledge out of their website.
Oh yeah. So one of the other questions is, I'm getting calls telling me my Medicare Advantage plan is ending and I need to get it fixed. What does that mean? I need to get it fixed.
Well, typically that's going to go for the people who are what we call on the dual special needs plan, the DSNP. It means they're eligible for both Medicare and Medicaid. And because of the redetermination, some insurance companies may do their own redetermination for those who are on a DSNP plan. And from what I read, there are going to be several thousand people who no longer are eligible for the plan that they have.
Mm-hmm.
But their insurance company is going to reach out to them, and they're going to do it with a letter. They're not going to do it with a phone call.
Okay.
So
never give up your Social Security number, because you got that point blank. Never give up your Social Security number. Medicaid.
Never give out your Social Security number.
Right. Medicaid.
To somebody you don't know.
Okay. Medicaid or Medicare ID. These
right.
You said, because I'm looking at some notes. So don't give up your Social Security number. Don't give up your Medicaid number. Don't give up your Medicare ID number. All those. Don't.
If somebody's actually calling you and asking for that, and they're not your agent, don't talk to them. Hang up and call your agent.
Mm-hmm.
And find out the real scoop.
But you know what? When you're talking about, don't give out these three main informations right here, Social Security and all that. Sometimes people are so nervous. They say, well, wait a minute. Let me get it. They don't realize that this is a scam, because the scammer is talking real fast and professional. And, ma'am, this call's only going to last 30 minutes, ma'am. And scares the person, So
it does. It takes advantage of... It takes advantage of our nerves. It takes advantage of our emotions. But from what I've gathered in phone calls and stuff, most people, if they're going to use a Social Security number to verify who you are, they're only asking for the last 4 digits.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
And if they can they already have your Social Security number because you've done business with them. If this is somebody that's trying to get identity out of you, they're going to ask for the whole thing. And that's just a red flag, huge red flag.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Because they want your identity, and once they get that, then they can get into your bank account. They can get into, they can just get into your life. They can recreate
your Social Security. Your Social Security number is your lifeline. So anytime you got somebody's Social Security, I mean, you can find out everything about them from the time they was born all the way to the present, especially if you're familiar with the technology that's being used now. Because the way things are now, I even see down here that you said that, technology is so up to date that if a call comes through your caller ID and it says a particular title, it still could be a scammer. But you see, well, it said state of Michigan, so I believed it. But it could be a scammer.
Yep. And they've learned how to clone certain phone numbers to make them look legitimate. Question them. If you don't, why would the state of Michigan be calling me, for instance? Don't just blindly say, oh, you're the state of Michigan, I have to give you all my info.
Right. Especially if you haven't dealt with them before, ladies and gentlemen. Don't be so quick to give out that number. Okay. So Social Security. So what are we saying here? I see how it says, how can I check for myself? You have down here the Michigan.gov/Michigan bridges can be used to check renewal status or make changes to addresses or income, etc.
And that's for Medicaid recipients. If you're concerned at all about the status of your Medicaid policy, that's how you get in touch and that's how you find out.
Okay.
They're going to help you, walk you through it, and give you a pretty firm date as to when or if you're at risk of losing some of your services.
Right. So really, a person is better off calling into the agency and asking it questions, not wait till someone calls them and they're not sure.
They may not ever get
right.
alerted.
Right. Okay. So
if there's a concern there, if you're making if your income's in that little gray area, that prior to the pandemic you weren't eligible for Medicaid, and then you were, chances are now you're not. But you need to check.
Okay. Okay. And you
Be
can
proactive.
also call your MDHHS office, which is Department of Human Services. Okay, if you have questions or any communication received. Okay, because you know if you're working with a person from DHS, now DHS every now and then does make a call, but DHS doesn't just call randomly. They don't, they don't know you from, Adam Tomcat.
If they're calling you, and then all of a sudden they're asking for verification of who you are, hang up.
Right.
Because they should already know who you are.
Right. This call is being recorded. It's recorded all right, but you're doing the recording. Okay. And another thing, like you said, when you say yes, that spuns off the web right there when a person answers the phone. Hi, I speak to Marcia Florence, and this is she. And can you hear me, Marcia? Oh no. Click it. We don't have time for that.
Because that one yes, that one little syllable. With technology today, they can recreate your voice.
Right.
And they can have that computer be you to talk to your financial people, your banks, your medical records, everything.
That makes me nervous. Oh, and I hate to be the mean person on the phone when somebody call me and I don't recognize the number, but my friends know that when I see a number that I don't know, if I answer it, unfortunately, I'll say take a chance. And what does that take a chance mean? That take a chance is like if you say something wrong, we're going to be done. Okay, so I suggest that people consider knowing that they're not sure about the phone call. Don't be so quick to speak, and answer questions that you don't know or you're not sure about.
What I suggest all the time, and I do this myself, so I know, is if you see a phone number that you don't recognize, don't answer it. If it's important, they'll leave you a voicemail.
Of course. I'm going to bring this screen back up again. And Dan, is there any particular number or service you think a person should be able to contact under the Department of Insurance and Financial Services that they should have?
Well, that hotline number, that 999-6442 is you as the public. That's your phone number. That's your direct link to the department for you to report any attempted scams or even any information that you think would be good for them to know. I mean, there's so much that goes on out there that if you don't trust somebody, call them and ask if they're licensed with y'all.
And you know what? I'm going to tell you something. If the state poses this as a press release, you know that there must be something going on, because they don't just jump up and do a press release for nothing. So there must have been some current issues going on that it's been brought to our public's attention.
What made this come out was the fact that there are supposed agents who do this with them, but they're claiming to be insurance agents. They're sitting down with people, they're writing bogus policies, taking their premium dollars and leaving, and there's no insurance. And people are finding this out too late. They get in that car accident, or they have a health issue, and they go, "Listen to my policy." Well, we don't have any right. There's no policy.
I just can't believe people are just that cruel. But cruelty comes in many forms and fashions. So, Yeah,
It
I
does.
get it. I get it. And when you start taking advantage of persons, not just the elderly, but people, period, to satisfy your own personal gains, that's jail time to me. That's what you should go to jail for.
Well, they get fined if they get caught, but there's generally no jail time, um, unless it's been an ongoing, like almost like a RICO scam, where there's 8 or 10 or 12 people involved in it, and it's county-wide or citywide, and it's just been an ongoing exercise in unethical behavior, basically.
Okay. All right. Well, we glad you came today, Dan, and filled us in on a few tips. So, is there anything you want to tell us before we wrap?
Just be careful out there. I mean, as our population ages, that means that there's going to be more and more of us to have somebody try and take advantage of. And so just be aware of your virtual surroundings as well as your physical surroundings.
Right. So when you answer the phone, don't always be so quick to give out information. Like you said, tell people I'll call you back. Give me your number. I'll call you back. They don't want to
Yes.
give you their number. That's the first thing you know. That's a scam. Don't let somebody just come to your door, flash a badge. You didn't call for the service. Don't open the door because you didn't call for that service. Okay. And even if you did call for the service, where's your ID? Can your manager call? Say something. It's a lot of that
If it's
going on.
if it's not your agent, don't talk to him. I mean, call your agent and say, "Why did you send this guy?"
Right. Right. Yep. Well, Dan, I hope you come back and join us again and give us some more resourceful information.
It's always a pleasure, Marcia.
Thank you. So hold on for me for a second. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I enjoy having Dan Tripp, as many as other people, to come and tell us about resources and information that goes on within our state and beyond. That way you become knowledgeable and you know what to look out for. And if you don't, then you can always give us a call here at the Just Ask Talk Show and ask us how can you get in touch with a person like Dan Tripp himself and many more individuals so that you don't miss out on the resources that you feel you need or want to share with your loved ones as well as your neighbors, okay? And always, if you miss our Facebook podcast live, you can catch us every Wednesday morning at 5:30 a.m. on PBS channel 56, or you can go to YouTube as well as our website justasktalkshow.org. I'm your host, Marcia Florence, and what do I always say? If you know a person, if you have a question about a person with a disability or just a general question, don't be afraid to ask. Just ask. I'm your host. See you next time.